Hello and welcome back to ID Boxing with me, your host, Rob Tebber. As always, like to remind everyone just before we get started to please like, comment and subscribe. Turn your notifications on for more boxing content. Now that's out of the way, there's a lot to discuss after a stunning weekend of boxing in Manchester. We were all there, apart from Barry. So we're going to come to Andy first.
That was his third time of doing that, by the way.
Yeah,
the first two times he swore.
Yeah.
Like, trying to be street. He had his hood up on one of them.
Yeah, Barry's rubbing off on me, the ghetto Barry Jones.
I'm certainly not rubbing off on you at all. Okay, there was one time when I was bored, but that was it.
We're all getting flashbacks to last Thursday's press conference, I think, here. But anyway, Andy, you were in Manchester at the weekend. Aside from that, which of course we're going to come on to talk about, how are you? You well?
Yeah, really good, really good. Still buzzing off Saturday night, to be honest. When you get a night like that,
Shouldn't take drugs, mate.
it takes. You sold them to me.
You got them from Belize. We found out on
Belize,
the last podcast.
Belize
didn't we?
beans were in action.
I find after a night like that, you're up for a while after it because there's just nothing like it. There's nothing like it. When they came over to us on commentary just before the main event, you have a quick chat and you couldn't really hear each other, and that's a great sign. And I just said to Macklin, I just said there's just nothing like this in any other sport. Nothing like it.
I heard they could hear you at home though, so sorry about that.
Yeah, but that's
I'm sorry.
If
Ironically,
a pay-per-view's only going to be £20, the downside is you're
only
going to listen to
he's
me.
full on Sky Boy now, isn't he? It's only 20 quid.
£25, you've got a slightly better.
But it was great. It was really, really good. And the thing that nobody expected to happen happened. And I don't know anybody who predicted that. Not one person. I know plenty of people who were picking Smith. Barry picked Smith. It was about 50-50. John Dennon, a good
fourth round stoppage tonight.
John Dennon, a good pal of ours, was doing a kind of canvassing a lot of opinion and doing a poll on it basically. And he said to me that he was expecting it to be relatively heavy Eubank because of the size difference, in the weeks approaching. And then when he got round to doing it, he thought his problem might be finding enough people or, it being relatively even. And he said it was straightforward because it was 50-50 basically. And that's how it went during the week. From my own point of view, when I saw them and was around them during the week, all I could kind of think, or the thing that stuck with me most was, God, Eubank really is quite a lot bigger. But that didn't really make any difference on the night. And it was very, very dramatic, the way it happened. When you see any fighter tottering around like he was, completely gone, it's just that always has an effect on me. When you see such a prime physical specimen, whatever weight they are, a few minutes previously they've been strutting their stuff on the ring walk and they look amazing, they look invincible, they look, they look incredible, and then all of a sudden they're incapacitated like that. It's just really, it kind of takes your breath away, really.
More so for somebody like Eubank, who we've never seen anywhere close to being that hurt. Like we see George Groves hitting with some big shots, and I think you got a reaction from him in some of those shots, but we've never seen Eubank. I've never seen him wobble. I've never seen him down, and there's going down, and then there's being, as hurt as he was. Barry, going to come to you. Obviously, going to get it out there. We've already mentioned it once. You did pick Liam Smith to win, but as shocked as we were by the way that the fight unfolded.
Yeah, I was saying Liam Smith to win, but I was saying, it's a good fight when you could pick 5 or 6 scenarios how that fight could play out, and genuine, not just the double guessing or saying he's going to get cut and all that. I mean, genuine, what things could really happen, and that was the one that I couldn't see. The only one I couldn't see was Liam Smith stopping Eubank, and certainly early. You always felt the early part of the fight was always going to be, going to favour Eubank because of the speed and athleticism, and Smith got to do his work. My whole thesis on Smith winning the fight was him making Eubank work harder than he has to, so that takes time. You've got to go in the later rounds, and I thought those 4 rounds at the end of the fight were going to be the ones where Smith was going to take over or sneak a win. Not that at all. Just fantastic. It was great. I did the commentary for DAZN, for the world feed, more people than what you had, and it was great atmosphere where I was in the room I was in. At the other side of the country, it was fantastic, and the lights were on. It was great, but it was unbelievable. Just didn't think that for a minute, and sort of glad in many ways. I don't know why everyone's hating on Eubank all of a sudden. I don't know why anyone's hating on Eubank ever. to be thinking about. I know he winds people up, but he winds his opponents up. For us as fans, for you, for what you do for your living, for jobs, and he's great because he always something to write about and talk about, and for us, of course. But even for fans, he's usually he makes a fight entertaining on the build-up. He makes most of the fights he's in are quite entertaining to watch. Where does he and the last few fights, the one that didn't happen, of course, with the Conor Benn and this one, he's taken the moral high ground in many ways. So there's a lot to like about him, and also in defeat, are we cope with that as well? He was magnanimous in many ways. So you've got to think, what has he done for everyone to hate him? It was strange, and people jumping all over him now, especially boxers. After is a little bit uncalled for. There should be an empathy amongst fighters. Especially the way he was tottering about, and then people are making jokes about that. I don't see the need. I genuinely don't see the need.
It's just cheap shots, isn't it?
It's crap, isn't it? It's just absolute crap.
And we'll come on to talk about them. Particularly one fighter who I don't know if he is currently a fighter, what his status is at the minute, but we'll come on to talk about Conor Benn's social media attack, I guess you could call it, later on. But back to the fight itself. We mentioned there, Barry, about kind of Liam keeping it nice and tight and taking it into the second half of the fight. Spoke to Joe McNally at the start of the week, Tuesday, and Liam Smith, and they said under no uncertain terms that they couldn't allow Eubank to settle into a rhythm. They had to win some of those early rounds, and he did. He came out in the first and second rounds in particular, Liam, and started very well at a pace that we've not really seen from him in his recent fights.
Yeah, I thought he lost the first. It was close. Because I thought Eubank did enough. I thought he won the second, and I thought Eubank had a great third.
Yeah.
And it looked like, this is a bit of a worry. But yeah, the jab was great from Eubank, I thought. Fantastic. It was fast. And Liam tried to fire the right hand off it a little bit now and again. But just making him work hard, I think that was important. Just keeping the rounds close. You're maybe not going to win them, but don't make him work hard to win the rounds. I think that was always imperative for Smith. And he, again, all these people thinking, we said this on the build-up of the fight, people just thinking he just holds his hands high and just walks you down. Well, if he just did that, he wouldn't have won any fights at a decent level. Because you just target practice. He does move his head a little bit more. And what he does better than what we don't really see is when he's coming forward, he just constantly changes distance with his feet. Only a little bit, but it's enough. Because he's not a dancer, but you can have good footwork without being on the balls of your feet all the time. And he slides in a lot of distance. And that plays a little bit. That played a little bit with Eubanks, just getting his distance with that long right hand. But I did say about the uppercut being the shot. That was a worry for Smith. And in the third round, that's what it looked like was going to start causing the damage because he he had free range with him, didn't he, with the uppercut?
Yeah.
When you got the high guard like this, and when you're leaning forward, it's going to obstruct your vision slightly. So those shots, they don't see those shots, and that's the worry because those uppercuts are always the worst shot to take because they literally take your soul when you get hit with them. It just drains you. You're like, oh, God. Just hit your head back and it's just they're horrible shots to be caught with. Like embarrassing in many ways and sometimes. And he just unloaded on him and he thought this Smith's got to get out of this rhythm now because I think the more you hit Smith, the more he wants to come at you. And that's what Eubank wants. He wants him to lose his mind, lose his shape. But Smith never, to be fair. He kept his composure. And then obviously the next round then he listened to the corner, who were fantastic throughout, to be fair. And did the right thing, relaxed a little bit more, and then the punches go in combinations rather than looking for that one big shot to hurt Eubank, which he doesn't really have. That's the thing why I never thought it was going to be a stoppage. Smith can punch his weight, but he's a wear you don't type of puncher, which the stoppage was sort of that way in many ways. So I didn't think he could hurt Eubank unless he had a real big heavy artillery in one single shot, and I was wrong.
You were wrong about that, but as I mentioned, you did pick the winner of the fight. Andy, coming to you on Chris Eubank Jr. I mean, inevitably you have to talk about the winner and the loser. I don't want this to turn into a as it always is. We kind of often find ourselves focusing on what the loser didn't do, and was it the weight, and was it this or that. We're going to do it a little bit because it's natural in kind of the post-mortem, if you like. Were you impressed with Eubank the first couple of rounds? I mean, a lot of people are talking around, the Roy Jones style. I think that was the version of Eubank we saw certainly in the first couple of rounds, and then he did start to land his shots, the uppercuts in the third round. But overall, until then, what did you make of his performance? Obviously, nobody was expecting the fourth round to go the way it did, but were you, I guess, happy? Were you impressed with how he'd started the fight in the early rounds?
I think it was going pretty well for him through 3 rounds because that third round he put down the first real marker in the fight, and he started to land that uppercut, like Barry said, just made a little adjustment as the round went on and got his feet a bit closer. He snapped the jab in the first half of the round, and then in the second half of the round, he started to land the uppercut. And I thought things looked a little bit ominous maybe at that point for Smith. And he actually started the fourth quite well, Eubank, too. A lot of the fight took place in Eubank's corner, basically, in that kind of quadrant of the ring, just off to my right-hand side. So you got a really, really good look at it. You know, he seemed happy to kind of give ground and just box out of that corner. The first couple of rounds, there wasn't much in the first round. I think all three judges had Eubank 3-0 up after 3 rounds. That's something that someone told me. I don't know that for absolutely certain. But I think you could have had it kind of 2-1.
Not unfeasible either, I don't think.
No.
Word, but yeah.
I'd have gone kind of like...
clear round for Eubank.
Third definitely Eubank, and then, you could probably 2-1 Eubank. You could maybe have gone 2-1 Smith. The first was close, so I think the second was Smith's. I think it was going fine for him. And then he got trapped in the corner and he got hit with probably 4 or 5 clean, good, sharp punches in a row. And I remember looking at it, and the first one that landed, he had a big dip of the knees. And when he was kind of dipping originally, I thought, okay, well, that's kind of normal. But then he went down so low that I thought, wow, he's hurt. And that's what kind of started it. And then Smith just, he locked on, didn't he? And he was so accurate.
That's the thing. What Smith never did was, and what like a lot of fighters do, especially in excitement, they overcommit with a shot, and then their body gets too close to the target, and they either get the other fighter can hold on, or they smother their work. His feet didn't move really. Again, because he got that good balance, he throws the shot, but he's always kept it, maintain that distance, so he could see everything he was on the target all the time. Eubank uses the ropes quite well to do this and bounces off the way.
That's why when he got hit with that first one, it took me a split second to work out whether that was him doing that or whether that was a reaction. And he was hurt. And he was hurt.
The camera angle we had originally, I think, was from the corner, from the back, so it wasn't great. So I'm commentating off Tube, which is for everyone off of TV. So I'm just getting what people at home are seeing, and I wasn't sure because you couldn't see from that angle. You couldn't really see a real concussive punch.
Started it,
I thought he slipped. I think he clearly got hit, but you couldn't quite see the real clear shot. The first there was 2 right hands before the finish. He bounces off the ropes, and I think he looks that way. That's unbelievably bad. Like you don't looking at the guy who's just off to his side here, isn't he? And he sort of looked this way, and I think he got clipped and he didn't see it. And I think that started it, and then he got caught with what seemed a better shot, but I think the first one did the damage. And then he goes down. When he gets up there, the finish was fantastic.
It was difficult. I mean, I watched the angle that you would have both had afterwards, because obviously we didn't hear it. It was at the arena at the time, and I had to watch it. I was watching it. I was thinking, what was the shot? What was the shot? I actually saw Tom Hamp, big up Tom from Sky Sports, who filmed it, and he posted a different camera angle to his Instagram. And you can see the first right hand, Eubank tries to kind of lean away from it, and it just catches him, and he goes back against the rope. And as he comes back, it's a short right hand to the side of the head. That does the damage. That's when the knees went. Yeah. And then I don't know whether or not he's sort of overcompensating. When the knees go down and he comes back up, is when he comes too high, and then he gets hit with the uppercut. And it's actually the last shot, it's the left hook. Yeah. The left hook. It's the uppercut, he throws the right hand and misses the right hand, and follows it sort of like a 45-degree hook.
5 punches in a row that all were just right on the button, and it was just so efficient. And I mean, when you sat where we sat, I just watch the ring all the time, even if I'm a little bit blocked. It's that's how I've always done it. And so my view was pretty good because it was off to my kind of square to my right. So you couldn't absolutely see. When someone's bobbing and weaving, it's quite hard. But from the way he went down, you could just work it. He went down heavy.
He did go down really heavy. And you could see kind of almost, I mean, he got up straight away. And it's because, I mean, again, it's that experience of never seeing Eubank hurt like that. And he would have never experienced that. And he's down and he's up, and all of a sudden he's tottering all over the place. So there's a bit where he points to the canvas.
And also getting hurt by a guy who can punch his weight. This is not a natural weight, of course. He boxes up, he can punch his weight. But he's not a big puncher. He's never been a big puncher throughout his career, Liam Smith.
It's always been an
accurate punch. Yeah. So, so you just didn't see, especially early in a fight when you're fresh. But if you're not looking at the target, if you don't see the punches coming, than you are. And you've been watching these slap things seeing these slap things. It's sort of dangerous. It's just giving people a free shot. That's what he did, pretty much. He did that. He sort of come up and then like, hit me when you're ready. Except he's not even looking. Hit me when you're ready. So this, you do what you do to try and survive. And using the ropes to bob and weave is a clever thing to do. And maybe a Roy Jones-esque type of thing. But you have to have the vision and the knowledge of how to do it. Because you can just time someone. Like, I don't think Smith thought I knew how to time. Because Smith doesn't panic and doesn't get too close to the target. He can see things clearly, and I think that what Joe McNally said in the corner was just relax a little bit. Look at the difference in the punches. I mentioned this before in the preview about Eubank. I was throwing when you're ready to throw, how much smoother you punch out because you're doing it at your own terms, so you relax. Your body's working in unison with itself. But then when you're under pressure, everything tenses up. Now, when you're trying to hurt somebody, apparently, I've never tried it. You're trying to hurt somebody, sometimes you can push your punches too hard and try too hard to hurt them, and it actually works against your body. So that goes relaxed Smith was. Nothing was loading up. And then obviously it gives him the opportunity then to throw that right hand, to throw that left hook after, to finish it off.
Yeah, and the timing was perfect, wasn't it?
All smooth, the one.
That's it. And it's almost like, it was, with Eubank kind of bouncing in and around the ropes, it was almost like he was hitting a speed bag. It's just like...
You make your point there, Barry. So he has that good vision that in close where he sees everything, he doesn't panic, and he can time the shots off whatever Eubank's doing. I think the most eye-catching shot to everybody, particularly on the slow motion, was the left uppercut. But the shots that I think did it was the second right hand.
Yeah.
And then the left hook after the uppercut, when he misses the right hand and it's the left hook on the way down. You can see it from that back angle where you can see behind Eubank, you can see the head in slow motion just go back.
To be fair to Sky, the replays were fantastic.
Yeah, really.
Clearly, I think the initial shot wasn't great. I'm never a fan of the corner cameras, because I think you do get just a one-sided view of it. But you can't blame anyone. No one thinks that. If that's Smith in the corner under pressure, then you might think, hang on a minute, something like that happened here. You'd never, for not 1 minute this early in the fight, is anyone in that gallery in Sky thinking, oh, hang on a minute, Smith might knock him out here. You just didn't. There's boxing people there, real good boxing people. They're not gonna. It was a scenario that no one thought. Now, anyone could be hurt, and I think Smith was trying to say that before the fight. I've been telling you, I could knock him out. Well, no one thought you could knock him out, and you probably never really thought you could knock him out. But anyone can be knocked out. Eubank Senior had a great chin, but he got knocked down. No, and anyone can be hurt. That's understandable. Marvin Hagler got knocked down, but then that's just disputable. But anyone can be hurt and anyone can be stopped. But it's. If he's in against a real big puncher, if he was in against Golovkin, you thought this might be this is the real test for his chin, not Liam Smith, who's been a career super welterweight.
He did well to get up, because
he did.
And I did hear people say afterwards, maybe he could have taken a knee and stuff like that, but he didn't know what was happening.
He was so badly hurt that the fight could have and arguably should have.
I've seen some criticism of the referee, and I get it, but at the same point, he did step in very quickly.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's an argument for stopping it after the first knockdown. I think maybe if he wasn't Eubank with all of his, it's kind of like the Carl Froch and George Groves situation, where it's like,
possibly
because it's Froch, he's a warrior, he's got a good chin, you kind of believe him.
The biggest one for me, Carl Thompson, David Haye, because if Carl Thompson defeated David Haye, but if that was any other fight that him with David Haye, that fight would have been stopped in David Haye's favour.
Carl Thompson, because he's so
the history, is so that's understandable. You have to. That's just how it goes, unfortunately. But let's just say as well how clinical Smith was after that.
He jumped on him. He landed a lead right hand straight away.
But he jumped on him again, but still never got too close. The time and judgment, everything was perfect. Again, he's
so composed.
Composed.
I think you could see it, like when. After Eubank gets up and he's tottering towards the ref, Liam goes to the neutral corner, he turns around and then he sees how hurt Eubank is, and he gives that motion to the crowd because he knows it's
like
over.
That, and he jumps up.
After that, he knows it's over.
And he almost went like that. When they called it, he went, like, I'm not sure, okay, then, are you sure?
Yeah, when
still.
It was interesting when they boxed on, because I couldn't really tell how clean that first right hand landed, because Eubank was in so much trouble that I couldn't really tell if it landed clean or if it was inside of the glove. But he was so gone that he basically dragged him down, and Howard thought, right, well, that's enough now. But actually, he did. He landed it absolutely.
Yeah, he landed on the top of the head again, side of the head. And
Roy Jones had the towel in his hand.
There was a couple of more cuffing shots on the inside. But yeah, it was when you watch it. I watched it back so many times. Great commentary over there.
Thanks.
For one of our guests.
Where did you get the feed of mine then?
Oh, I was there. I didn't watch the live feed. But anyway, yeah, it was that moment where Liam kind of looks at him and he thinks like, oh, he's gone here. The fight's over. And you said like, the fight could be over on the comms. Sorry, I mean, one of our panel said that the fights could be over on the comms. And then maybe that's what another reason. It would have been interesting to see what Liam would have been like had he have not, if he'd got up and kind of brushed it, like when Eubank got knocked down by Calzaghe, when he gets up and he kind of gets in the corner and smiles and nods and stuff. But it was very, very different. And Liam was kind of, even then, he didn't lose his head thinking the fight's over, I've got to go in there and do this. He went in there, landed a right hand, couple more cuffing shots, and the fight was over.
Yeah, Eubank didn't realise it was. You know, he was still coming forward thinking it was...
Again, it's just so hurt that in his head, he's like, no, the fight's still happening. He was gone.
He was totally gone. And, you know, Joe McNally's received quite a lot of praise, and rightly,
I think so as well,
for the fact that he could see that was what had happened, and he just wrapped up Eubank and kind of...
He's running the ring to celebrate with his fighter.
Yeah.
And it's rightly so.
And then I think he figured it out, didn't he, on the way?
Liam, as soon as he sees Eubank come around, Liam starts to shape up again. Yeah. Right? And he's like, whoa.
Yeah. It was absolute chaos in that ring because it was over. The referee had stopped it and the towel was in the hand, but Eubank didn't really seem to realise. And then the lads were through the ropes, Paul, and the corner really, really quickly. All of a sudden, there's a lot of people in the ring and they're all going crazy. And it's just those kinds of moments where you just think, boxing's mental. You just don't get that in. You don't get that in other sports.
It's so intense though, because
yeah.
Winning and losing in boxing, and winning and losing in any sport, I would imagine it's there and there. There's no like especially in a fight like that. It's life changing for Liam Smith.
Yeah,
I mean he's earned some good money.
Yeah.
But look at this now. You got the. Let's not. I suppose you want to talk about what goes next now. But that was a good payday for him. Now his whole world at the latter end of his career, 34 years of age,
absolutely
has opened up. And this seems to be a theme recently of fighters.
Yeah,
you all sort of do all the work early in your career to get to the level you need to be at the world level if you're lucky enough and good enough, and then. Your period as being at the very best is very short. Now it seems to be longer, but you've got fighters now look like they've gone past that, getting second chances. No, it's not a world title fight, and arguably not world level-ish.
Yeah,
they had to judge where it is. To be fair, because Eubank, we can't really judge how good Eubank was compared.
He's a top 10 middleweight.
Yeah, but it's hard to judge how good he is compared to the others. Top middleweights. That's what I would say. But I think he's pretty good. That's what I would say. Much. And this is his. And before anyone starts going on about weight, this is his weight. By the way, middleweight's his weight. Whether he struggles to make the weight or not, but it's his weight. So the weight's not an excuse where he got beat.
No, well, I mean, I was just going to ask you exactly that because inevitably people have kind of concentrated on that. I didn't say anything about it myself at the time because I thought they would probably pick up on it in the studio and discuss it because that's more of a, like you say, a post-mortem kind of subject. In the moment, you got to stay in that moment,
for sure.
and just celebrate the winner.
Course,
but I'm always reluctant to kind of go down that route with the weight because I've done it a couple of times before, and fighters have kind of just. A couple of times have just like gently kind of pulled me or sent me a message and just said, usually because I've said that a win they had was against a fighter who was maybe struggling at the weight. And they both said the same thing where, you know, they just said, listen, like, I understand what you said there. They said, but everyone's a bit weight trained. Because if you're foxing at the right way, it should be hard. And it's just like, we're all doing the same thing here. And if it's the case that you really cannot do that weight anymore, then more fool you for fighting at it.
And also for some fighters, like say Lee Selby, for example, no excuse why he lost the Warren. I'm not making an excuse about that. But let's just say he had to stay at featherweight because the title was bigger than him. I don't want to disrespect Lee. He's a really good fighter, but I mean...
No, that makes total sense.
He moves up another weight, and he got to start again to get his opportunity to get a title fight. Same as people like Ricky Burns, people like that, you know.
Quite often, you have to hang on a bit longer than you really should.
Of course, yeah.
Because you work so hard to get
there. But a Eubank, there's no titles on line here, because he's such a big name, and he's the A-side in almost every fight that he's going to be in, almost, then he can box at any weight that he's comfortable at. So, you know, and if he would have boxed Conor Benn at whatever, that 157 or whatever it would have been, 158, then weight would have been a factor. But then you can't use that as an excuse either because that's what you agreed. You know what it is. You're taking the money. That's the risk. It's like the smaller fighter, not having to struggle to make weight, but then come fight night, and I've been in that scenario, you take that risk that if he's not weight drained come fight night, then your lack of physical strength, so you take that's how it works out. So that's not an excuse at all. Like that, and this is his weight. They haven't absolutely come down. There's no rehydration clause or anything like that.
No,
this is his weight. Liam just beat him, and it might be a long career. It might be a shot he didn't see. The weight might be a factor because he might be drained of the weight, but that's all his own fault.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
he could have missed it. Like you say, there was no title.
To be fair, he hasn't made an excuse either.
No,
and I'm not thinking about because I think he's I think he's been a revelation recently as Eubank Jr. and he's tough as he comes. Just because he got hurt by one fighter, don't mean he can't walk through the punches of another fighter. But he got beat fair and square. There was no bones about that.
Yeah,
just got beat by the better fighter on the night. Clearly,
I don't want to. You don't ever want to detract from the winner in these types of scenarios. But the weight is part of the story. I think.
Yeah. It's not though, is it? It's not though. It's only because we went. No, I was it. Why?
Because 2 months ago or 3 months ago, he's making 157 for a jolly.
That's for that fight.
Yeah, but you shouldn't be making weight twice in 3 months when you're one weight at a completely alien, unnatural weight to you.
When there was no point.
Yeah, and then 3 months later you're making weight. It's part of the story. Like the fight could have been at 164 and Liam Smith might have won. So it's not to detract from it. They could have boxed at any stage of their career and Liam Smith may have always beaten him. But for me, to see Chris Eubank Jr. his whole career, never seen him wobbled at all, and then a 154 pounder coming up to 160 and looking like Gerald McClellan or Julian Jackson, there has to be a reason somewhere for that.
But it could be, your chin doesn't last forever. It's not like the one of the last things to go. By the way, your chin, it's not. So sometimes, and the shots you don't see. He wasn't looking when he got caught with it for a start. It's all those things. Good timing, good technique.
Perfect combination.
He's coming off the ropes, like it's onto the punches. All those things have a better understanding why he couldn't take the punch than him being weight drained. I don't see, and even if he is weight drained, most fighters are weight drained. If Joe Kazaki gets beat by Joe Kazaki, I mentioned him just before he pivots. No, if he gets beat by Mikel Kessler, right in the Millennium Stadium, it was called at the time. If he gets beat there, he gets beat because he gets beat. Joe was struggling to make the weight from Branko Sobit, or Sobit, whatever his name was. That was his first defence back in January 1998. He was in saunas. Can't do that anymore. And he wouldn't do it if he was boxing.
He didn't. He wasn't in a sauna. He was in.
He was skipping. He was wetsuits on. The guy back then. So how did he? So, but if he gets beat by McKessler, I'm sure. And no, what's that? That's like 7 odd years later, and he's bigger and he's older. He can't. No one's going to say, "Oh, to be fair, though, he's been struggling to make the weight for 7 years now, 10 years."
No, I get that. It's always
that's his weight.
Part of the story, but this
160 is his weight.
There is a particular.
I'm not having it.
Of course, you can't just say, "Oh, the weight is not a factor at all."
No, is it? Well, weight's a factor for everyone then. The reason I got beat the reason I lost my fight.
Okay, so
was too big for me.
The Joe Calzaghe boxed Mikel Kessler. If 3 months before then he signed up and he had a clause of 165 pounds, then made the weight and then went up there, and then he would have more of an excuse, no?
Well, he'd have we all got an excuse, but I mean, that's 160 is his weight. That was 3 months before he's making weight. You can recover in 3 months.
No, I mean, I don't think you should be making 157 and then going in the.
But he made 157 for one day. He made 157 for one day.
But still, he had to make it.
Yeah, but nobody's made it for one day.
He probably had never been that weight until he was 16 years old.
And did he make it?
Yeah.
Well, we seen on this. Did you stand there and see him make it?
Okay, right. Okay, well, did Chris Eubank Jr. make the weight for the fight at the weekend? Did he get on the scales? Were there cameras there?
No, but
what's the difference?
No, the difference is there's officials.
Okay, but were you there?
No, I'm not there.
Well, then it's the same thing, isn't it?
No, it's not.
We're teetering on the brink of an existential.
He's being a prick, isn't he? But no, because there's boxing board officials there marking the weight down.
Okay,
officially.
right. Semantics. So he stood on the scales and the scales said 157.
Okay, let's just say for argument's sake, right? He made the weight. He made that 157.
Yeah.
Maybe. But why would he? But if he did, that's fair enough. But how long ago was that?
It was October.
That has a massive.
It's supposed to be October the 8th.
Yeah,
that has a massive effect the next fucking day when he's fighting.
3.5 months.
It don't have a massive effect in a month's time at all.
Well, it depends because you're going into. He's gone essentially sort of back to back.
You've never made weight in your fucking life. What do you know? No disrespect. I'm not a nutritionist, and I understand. No, nothing's great for your body. I understand all knowledge.
But you're going back into a camp at a later stage of your career at a weight that you're not familiar with.
No, but he's not.
That's a fact. That's not.
But literally, the next fucking day, he's whatever he is, and he's closer to his training weight. He's closer to his fighting weight than he's ever been before. I mean, I tell you that in weighing 157 fucking 3 months ago, whatever it was, won't have one fucking ounce of difference of his performance, resilience, whatever. The training camps and the sparring, all that might have a fucking effect. Now, if you had hard training camps and he's had another camp on top of it, and he's had hard sparring, taking loads of punches, all those might have an effect. But I think having 2 training camps back to back, if you know what you're doing, if the coach knows what they're doing, is not ideal. But you taper it.
So it does have an effect then?
Not the fucking weight, though. No.
You just said so. It's not
Training
ideal to
camps.
go into a training camp on the back of it.
I'm talking about wear and tear of the fight of training, sparring, all that. That might have that could possibly have an effect on your resistance. But I don't see that making a weight 3 months ago has an effect on you making on you fighting. No,
but it's being on like a calorie deficit for X amount of period of time in I don't know what it would have been, the 2 or 3 weeks leading up to that, and then going back into a training camp. I mean, fighters and trainers always talk about how kind of having something on you. George Groves used to talk about it all the time. We're having, as he used to refer to it, a bit of chub, or sometimes a lot of chub for George, going back into the gym and working that off. Not having that little bit and fluid and liquid around the brain and being dehydrated and stuff like that. But be dehydrating yourself to that point and then maybe starting a camp 2 weeks later.
No, but you're literally like you're totally, when you start your camp, you're totally hydrated. Totally hydrated.
On the back of what looked like a dangerous weight cut a couple of weeks previous.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah, I understand that. But he's not. He's not like he's not he's not a prisoner of war camp malnutrition, is he? You know what I mean? It's like he's not. He hasn't lived in a fucking cave for 6 months and had no food at all. He's tapered on to make a weight for like a week. That's what's happened in reality.
I mean, he wouldn't taper down to make 157. He had to starve himself.
Well, I know how to make weight, mate. But I know the things we do to make weight, by the way, and it's disgusting. But it's you do that bit for a very short period. The bits that you shouldn't do, the bits no one will ever talk about, you do that bit for a really short period of time. The killing part of it, you have to be disciplined, and discipline, by the way, it helps you, because at some point in this training camp, you're at your healthiest and your best. Because you're starting to shift all that crappy weight off, and you are fit and strong, and you're eating the right foods, and then you have to just stop eating all the good stuff, and eat nothing until the end. You eat nothing and drink nothing at all. That's what happens quite often. Used to, maybe not nowadays. Hopefully.
No, fighters will still talk about that. But it's just
either way, the weight. I don't see the weight being a factor one bit.
See, I disagree. So I don't see it being
a fucking clue. Like
no, but I disagree because I don't think it's a significant, the ultimate factor, but it is a factor. I don't think you can say it's not at all not a factor.
Well, I am saying that though.
Okay, well we disagree then.
Yeah, you disagree. But one thing that I did find really, really interesting was that he didn't use it as an excuse, Eubank, in the ring. I'm injecting a bit of parliamentary procedure here and just moving things on a little bit. I don't know what that
means, but carry on.
It was great to hear from him in the ring, where he basically just shook hands and said the better man won on the night. You know, no disrespect intended in the build-up. It was perfect, because my only slight concern about that when I saw him kind of hove into view was that he had been badly hurt, and those interviews sometimes don't go that well. But he kept it really short, said what he said. But then it didn't take him all that long to start to begin that rehabilitation process that every fighter who loses has to go through, particularly if they might be going into a rematch with a fighter that's just beaten them, of coming out with a version that kind of explains to himself how that happened, that does not involve him having just been absolutely bested. And then not that much later, it had turned into basically he landed, a combination from the gods or a punch from the gods. I slipped and the referee jumped in too soon. So he's already selling that to himself to try and get himself his head straight for a rematch.
Literally from the ring into the dressing room,
I find that stuff fascinating.
We've spoke about that on here no end of times. Wilder was an example.
Wilder, of course, he's always the best example. But it's just how quickly that happens. His head clears almost, Barry, and it's like he's telling the truth where he's in that fog. Then his head clears a bit, and he thinks, "Hang on a second, I'm going to take the rematch, and I can't. That's no good." That's no good. I can't be saying that.
Every boxer looks for. Everyone's got. No one's has a perfect camp. No one has perfect scenarios in anything. You very rarely. So there's always a reason why you lose.
Yeah.
Always a reason. No, outside of just getting beat, there's always a reason when something's happening in training camp, or he didn't make the weight, or I haven't sparred for 6 months, or I didn't fight for a year, or so you use that.
But I just found that turnaround
because boxing's full of,
really
because boxing behind all the technical stuff is really just about confidence.
Of course.
Don't believe in yourself. You
Absolutely.
can't get in there. So you have to just keep but he wouldn't have beat me if that happened, and then you just No, when I say boxers are the best liars on the planet, you have to lie to yourself more than anyone else.
You're walking that fine line, aren't you? We talk about it, me and Matt talk about it quite a bit, Matt Macklin. You're treading that fine line between self-confidence and self-delusion. And he told the truth in the ring, and 45 minutes later he's thinking, nah, that version's no good. That version's no good for a rematch.
He probably wouldn't have even consciously thought that. It would have probably been a natural thing that you went back to and it would have immediately, his brain would have started whirling.
That's how you are.
And otherwise he can't function.
But what he needs is someone to go, well, listen, you were boxing fine. Who knows how the fight would have played out, by the way, at the end. But you were boxing fine. But then you've bent over, you come back off the rope, and you're looking that way when he hits you this way. That's one thing you've done wrong. Someone tells him that's what he needs.
Yeah, George picked up on it quite early, actually, that he was pulling out high. He just said straight away, and he says, and that's dangerous. And that ultimately, although he was backed up to the ropes, that's what happened, isn't it?
Well, the rope can be a fantastic weapon to use.
Or a problem.
If you know how to use them. But he bounced onto a shot, didn't he?
Yeah.
He's pulling out high with his chin in the air.
Yeah.
Going back to the stoppage, one thing that we haven't spoke about, and one of the things that is kind of, again, part of the social media post-mortem is an elbow on the inside from Liam Smith. Left hook that didn't quite find the target. We saw Eubank's eye, which was in a terrible state. I don't know how long you were at the arena
Came
afterwards.
up quick, didn't it?
But he left a couple of hours later, and he looked even 2 hours, it's like 2 o'clock in the morning, very fragile, and he was still icing a very...
That looks like a broken bone.
And there was a left hook on the inside that just missed the target from Smith, and the elbow came through. Look, I don't think it was intentional at all. It's one of those things you mentioned about him not smothering his work, and
that's the rough and tumble of...
Yeah, it's part of the sport. Barry... With something like that on the inside, how painful would that have been? Would that have been something that he would have noticed that's different from a shot? Or
if it hits you clean, usually the things like that cut you. But like if it hits you clean, you feel it. Yeah, I've been able on the back of the head once. I mean, I'm literally like made me go. In a fight, I've recovered, but I mean, it can be the difference. But unless he's going like this or literally just looking to do it, then it's just one of those.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's not an intentional.
But it might have had a relevance on how he might have been slightly dazed. And see little shots. Sometimes it might be like we said about even the finish. You see the big shots, but there was a couple of right hands just before that when there's like 2 phases of attack, if you like, and the first that started the damage. He gets a little bit, and then you're more susceptible because you just glaze, you're not concentrating enough, and it's enough just to keep you a little bit blurred to make you a easier target to hit. That's what happens. So things like that can make you go.
Less able to set yourself.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
It's
because sometimes you see, and it's usually like that, but it's sometimes you just see all like white lights, like just don't know where you are. It feels sometimes it's an instant view. Sometimes it feels like it's forever. Like I remember I had one as an amateur, and I looked at the referee to go, no, I'm all right. But it must have been like in just that quick. And he just was like, what are you looking at me for, probably? Because I think I'm going to get stopped. Because I didn't caught with the shot. And I don't know where I'm like, whoa, I'm all right. I'm going to go, I'm all right. And he's going, what are you shaking your head at me for? Because when you look back on the VHS, that's what it was back then. VHS, kids, right? is what we used to watch stuff on. Like mainly like films.
Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, but it's nothing. You don't even see it. I go, what am I looking at the referee for? Because I don't even see the shots.
No, I've always wondered about that. There must be this kind of weird time lapse when you're on the receiving end, because quite often in fights you see a fighter hurt, and it's incredible how quickly they manage to get things back together. But those couple of seconds, if it's even that long, must feel like forever. Or you're probably not even aware of how long it is.
Yes, and also I've said it before, haven't I, about my first standing count as an amateur. I think he knocked me back, and I sort of recovered instantly. I'm screaming and moaning at the referee, what are you giving a standing count for? He didn't even touch me. And I didn't feel it. I couldn't understand why you gave a standing count. And I watched back the Beat the Max. Beat the Max was like before VHS. He almost snapped my neck in half. Even literally, he hit me so hard, and I almost headbutted the floor backwards. So he should have stopped the fight, really, and not like back then. No, this is the 80s. He didn't care about kids, but So it's a weird thing, and I didn't feel it, But like I must have been knocked out, concussed or something, and I carried on, and still lost the fight.
So before we come on to what potentially lies ahead for both fighters and talk about Liam, kind of part of the post-mortem. Okay, we've discussed the style, the weight. What is it? Is it a combination of it? Is it the Roy Jones style? Did he overlook Liam Smith? Did he think, there's no way this guy can hurt me? What was the reason ultimately for what we holding our hat on for the reason why Liam Smith was able to get the stoppage?
I think the reason he lost Eubank and the reason that Liam Smith won was because it was pretty even through those first three, and Eubank had just had a good third, like we said, was that he was in with someone, and we did kind of say this last week, who's good enough that if he made a mistake or found himself in a situation whereby he was in a bit of trouble, the other guy was of that standard that he could capitalise in ruthless fashion, and that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. You know, it was a tremendous piece of work by Liam Smith, utterly ruthless, clinical, cold, calculating. Any adjective you choose to apply to it, and that is how I will remember that, and that is my kind of version on it. And we've discussed the weight, and that was very entertaining, by the way. Listen to you two go at it, and you do have to talk about things like that. But that is what I think happened. That we all agreed last week that Smith was the better boxer, and that's why he won.
Yeah,
we didn't expect him to knock him out. But he did, and the reason he did it was because he just seized on an opportunity and he exploited it in a way that nobody could have done that better. No one in the world could have capitalised on that situation better than he.
Sorry you said that, mate. I tell you that. I thought we were going to get loads of comments about that little me telling Rob what's what, but you saying that now. That goes that Eubank's going to win a world title.
Oh God! I got asked the day before about what happens for the winner and the loser, and I was answering a question the day before the fight had even happened about what's next for Eubank if he wins. So I'm saying, well, I think he'll want to go in and challenge for a world title. I'd love to see him fight Golovkin, and they kind of put it up they put it up kind of quite late on the day of anyway. Most people seeming like watching it like after the event. And people were kind of messaging me about it, like I'd said it after the fight had happened.
See, I don't know nothing about. I can't do anything with computers, but we got a guy who's brilliant with them. So what you want to do? Find a clip of Andy saying, "I think Eubank will win a world title."
I can't have that, mate.
And then get that guy who goes, "What's the? Is it Simpsons?
Yeah.
Get him. So show that, and then do that." And just play it for 5 minutes.
That's fine.
I've said nothing stupid ever, so I'm all right, me.
Barry,
it's fundamentals and
better man on the night,
keeping your shape. Yeah. I think that's it. Where Eubank is more not near as skillful, but more athletic, more limber, and like having a puncher. When you have those sort of things in your locker, naturally you can get away with not doing the fundamentals so well. Because that jab, you got such a long reach, you're so fast, and your feet are so in and out and limber that you can bring it back low and get away with it. Then you have a guy who's physically, naturally tough, mentally tough, and keeps his shape under any sort of circumstance. Even against Canelo when he was getting beat up, even against Munguia when he was getting beat up, he still kept his shape and still and that's what and keeps himself almost in the fight even when he's losing, and that's the difference.
Yeah, that's a big part of what broke Anthony Fowler really quickly in their fight. Yeah. He had a really good first round, and Smith was just still there again. Yeah. So it was like, what's going on here?
See, people looked at the Fowler fight and thought, well, Fowler hit him back on his heels. Well, Fowler can punch. Of course he's going to hit you back on the heels. But Smith seen Fowler, and also there was a city grudge there, wasn't there? So he wanted to do this is my city, and he wanted to do a job on him. But so he just thought, I'm just going to put pressure on you, and you can't hurt me.
Yeah,
he bets on himself as much as any boxer I know. Actually, Liam Smith, and to be honest, early in his career, I couldn't see it. I thought he was just a hands-high walk-forward fighter at the very beginning. I couldn't see it. I wasn't sold on him. When he beat Steve O'Meara to win the Commonwealth title back in whenever that was, 2013, 14, whenever it was, I thought he's strong, he's tough, and he throws some good punches. But as he steps up in levels, he's going to be just a target to be hit. I think he's adapted tremendously well. I think he understands sport, Liam.
He understands his capabilities as well, what he can and can't do, what he's good at.
Yeah, and he hones in on it. But I think he understands sports. I think his sporting brain, because he's pretty good at football, but his boxing brain in particular is really good. And again, he's not going to dance around and be flash and go whoa like that. Nothing's ever whoa with him. Actually, except for Saturday.
Yeah.
But he's always going to be. That's a good job.
Yeah,
he's one of those fighters. That's a good job.
But that's what was so great about it, wasn't it? Was that it wasn't. What was so impressive was the fact that it was just so, if a finish like that ever can be, kind of understated, just landing punches. And people might jump on me by saying that nobody in the world could have done that better, but I absolutely stand by it. If you take any fighter and say, okay, this one punch has landed and it softened him a little bit. Now what are you going to do?
It was like
you couldn't have done it better.
Liam's put it up about the Anthony Fowler fight, knife through butter. That's what it was at the end. He had him hurt, and then it was it.
Yeah,
Fight was over.
Again, see, that's the same. He understands sports, he understands boxing, and like you said, himself, because he knows what he can do. Or you said he knows what he can do, but because he understood, I don't have to do this with this kid. I know I can do this. There's a risk attached to everything in boxing, unfortunately. But I think he believed that. So he got the tactics right. And he might not always be pretty, you might see a vulnerability in him now and again, but he just thought, he hits hard, but he doesn't hit clean. Fowler, maybe. That's how he saw it. But in Eubank, he knew that he had a guy who was naturally bigger, so the weight was a factor then, in that respect, against Smith, not against the other fella. but and a guy who can whip the punches in from range, and I got to be careful with what I do. But as long as I keep my shape and just make him work hard, and I think that was the tactic all along.
We were with him in the gym on Tuesday beforehand, and I'm sure he won't mind me kind of divulging this now. And he'd said that he spoke to Marcus Morrison, of course, long-time gym mate of his who boxed Chris Eubank Jr. He said that Marcus had told him that on the inside he's not very strong. You'll be able to have your way with him on the inside. Just get there and kind of hold your shape, which is kind of what he does anyway. But again, it's like what we spoke about at the start, where Liam historically has kept things nice and tight and pushed it into the second half of the fight. But they were very aware. Joe Mack said, we can't give away the early rounds. We can't rely on him fading in the second half of the fight and then chipping away. And I feel like the tactics were kind of, it was a Liam Smith performance, but it was just had that little bit of extra, I guess, early juice and early energy, I felt.
Yeah, but I don't think he used to ever give away any rounds. It's ridiculous. All these still these.
Not give them away, but
no, people do though. I think these perfect tacticians go, right, don't worry about that. I mean, I always say you got to make him. No, you have to make him work hard. Don't worry about losing rounds. Don't panic about losing the rounds. As long as you're making him do what he doesn't want to do, and then you're hoping. It's still a gamble, but you're hoping. But if you physically, if you go out too hard, and go against your whole ethos of how you fight, then you're going to energy down the stretch. You got to box your strength. So you might think, I might be behind here. Or for me, it used to be a case, I might be ahead because I was a mover against physically bigger guys. So then I got to win as many rounds as I can, because those last few rounds, I might have to get on my bike and run.
And I think
you got to have the rounds in the bank to do that. But Liam's not that way inclined. So he's got to think, I got to make you work really hard and force you to run.
I think they were just wary of the fact that, look, Eubank, while he's not fought the full 3 minutes for his whole career, really, he never really boxed the full 3 minutes of every round.
That's what I was saying that, though, all the time.
But we've not seen him, blowing out of his arse in the last 3 or 4 rounds of a fight. And I feel like Joe Mack said, we can't rely on him to be doing that towards the end of the fight and then pick up the rounds there. I feel like it was kind of a bit of a perfect storm of all of it. I think Liam Smith, we all know he's such a good fighter. I think Eubank maybe looked at him and thought, 154 coming up, I've never been hurt, I'll be okay against this guy. I don't feel like, and we spoke about it in the preview, I don't feel like the Roy Jones Jr. mix has ever been the right one. And it's pulling out high. And I wasn't very impressed with him up until, he did kind of what we've known of Eubank years ago in the third round, where he stood and planted his feet and was landing those uppercuts in the third round. But the whole flicky jab, Eubank, hands low and reflex, I've just never been sold on it. I've just never...
You seen that? He jumped in with the left hook once. Was it just a once one? I think he did it.
Yeah, I think it was.
But it was awful, wasn't he? Just smothered his...
It's just not
I don't even think Liam Smith, because Liam Smith, maybe if you would have seen it, he just would have took a step in.
And
but he don't think he did that.
Because he had a good third round, basically, because he did keep it simple.
He did what he's good at and what he's always been good at.
He snapped the jab up from the waist and just established that, and then in the second half got a little bit more ambitious by sticking a right hand on the back of it, and it was an uppercut, which always looks flashy rather than a straight right hand, and that's fundamentals really. And Smith took a took them well, though. I mean, we mentioned it at the time. It doesn't mean you're going to be able to take them all night, but he took them. It was like he was expecting them. Like you say, it's a hard one to see coming, but the way he was kind of like, you could almost see on his face, it's like, all right, well, there's one on the way here, and he's like...
Eubank throws a great uppercut that he did early in his career, of course, and like I used to do them all the time. And because he got such a long levers, as Liam Williams was telling me, then then he can throw from further out, and you should get away with it. But like, and especially when you got a guy with a high guard who dips to his left more than he does anything else when he's coming forward, and he's over the front foot slightly, so his body's arched over a little bit. It's there for you. The thing with throwing an uppercut is it's hard to get the accuracy. It's a great shot when you land, but if you miss,
exposed.
It's come from here, and you got to go all the way through there. If you miss, it goes all the way up, and you got to come back. And so there's loads of things that you're vulnerable. You got to turn, and you don't always turn from the course. Sometimes you might square yourself up a little bit when you throw it, and you can be in trouble if you miss. But someone like Liam Smith, that's the perfect shot for him if you can get it right. And in that third round, he got a spot on.
Because with the Jones thing as well, during the build-up, they'd been kind of saying that Eubank was now a fighter who could do it any which way.
He's a complete fighter.
Yeah, and I just thought, well, we've never seen any evidence of that. If you then unveil that on Saturday night, then wow, fair enough. I will give you all the praise that you're due. But it's just not true, is it?
No, well,
it just isn't true.
We've had it throughout his whole career, haven't we? We've had he's the next Floyd Mayweather Jr. We've had all sorts of stuff over the years, but we've not had much in the way of, I mean, it's just as somebody who picked Eubank to win the fight, we've not had much in the way of evidence of these kind of proclamations over the years.
And the danger, I think what's going to mess with your head, no matter how confident you are, and he presents as one of the most self-confident people you'll ever see in your life, Eubank Jr., but if one thing you've always been able to trust is the fact that you've got this granite chin. Now, if it's the case that his punch resistance isn't what it was, we're choosing to give all the credit to Liam Smith, and I think that's right. But if it's the case that his chin isn't what it was, then he's in trouble, isn't he?
That's kind of where I'm going with it. It's the perfect storm of Liam being revved up, good performance from him, got the tactics spot on, congratulations. Eubank, that version of him with the Roy Jones and giving opportunities. He doesn't have the reflexes of a Roy Jones. He's got fast hands, but he doesn't have a Roy Jones hand speed. Roy Jones could punch as well. So it was not always just a case of you have to be wary of the speed. You get knocked out charging at Roy Jones Jr. Those things, and I don't feel like the punch resistance is necessarily there. I said on the preview show that since he's come down from 168 to 160, there's been what I feel is more of a, I can't remember if I exactly said it, but a fragility about him. Like, he hasn't had that robustness that we were always familiar with from years back. And okay, he was never a 168 pounder, but he's 33 himself. Yeah. People were looking at this fight like it was Liam Smith at 38 versus Chris Eubank Jr. at 25. He's 33. And he's always been incredibly lean throughout his whole career. You never see, a picture of Eubank Jr. out of camp looking massively overweight or anything like that. And I feel like those factors, all in all, George Groves made a brilliant point after the fight, and I know that he said it repeatedly. I don't know whether or not he said it on the broadcast, where he said that Chris Eubank Jr. fought the Smith family tonight.
Yeah.
Where he said that Liam came out and he soaked it all in. He had a big smile on his face. He had the brothers, he had his dad, he had all the crowd behind him. And you kind of had Eubank Jr. at the top of the ring walk where, in George's words, he said he didn't look like he wanted to be there. He had no dad. Obviously, Sebastian, rest in peace, passed away 18 months or so ago.
The ring walks were very different. I mean, Eubanks was what you usually get. It's that kind of like brooding, sullen, laser kind of focus, whereas Smith just really enjoyed his. Yeah. Just really enjoyed it. Really upbeat track. He was loving it, wasn't he?
Yeah, it was brilliant. It was, again, like kind of the contrast between the two. But yeah, those things.
But that's almost the same for Eubank all the time.
Yeah,
I know he's had his dad in the past. I know what's happened to his brother's awful. And all that can have an effect. Of course it can. But life gets in the way for everything. I don't want to trivialise what's happened. It was horrific, but I mean, life gets in the way for everyone.
Yeah, no, of course, and there'll be. I'm sure Liam Smith has stuff going on in his personal life, or has had stuff. He said something silly at the press conference, and he had on his case, on his mind. All of a sudden, now he's trying to defend, his whole ethics of life. Maybe I don't know the terminology I should use, but he said something, and people, called him out for it, and rightly so. So he's had to deal with that as well. Coming, I'm not this sort of person. I know this, as he was saying. But so everything gets in the way. But Eubank being all this like
the whole thing on your own sort of thing. I do understand it. It was great, but that's sort of him anyway.
It is, yeah. Me against the
I don't
world.
need that. Yeah, look at me.
No one likes me.
Like his dad, wasn't it? When he boxed that German, was it?
Yeah, it's like
Boccaccini or whatever his name was. You don't say it that way, do you?
Boccagiani.
Boccagiani, yeah.
In Germany.
Remember that? He
Wow,
was like,
that
this
was incredible.
Just like, look at me. Like,
but with the Jones thing as well, I did hear him say something I thought was really interesting, Roy Jones, in the build-up, where he was asked a question about people are saying, you know...
You say you all must have forgot?
Yeah. He said, you know, it was being asked, you know, but, you know, people are questioning whether you can really teach Chris to kind of box like you. And he said, well, I hear people say that, and I think that's crazy. You know, I was a fighter, I could do this, I could do that. I could do absolutely everything. Nobody could do it like me, and I've got all that knowledge. And how can I not pass that on? You know, but what he doesn't understand is that other people aren't him.
No, and Roy Jones, people are, I've never actually asked him.
And it's quite common, this, isn't it, with top
you see it like football and
they
stuff,
they cannot understand why other people can't do what they did.
It's because, like, he gets the arse ache, and I understand why when people say he's the most naturally talented.
I was just about to say this. Yeah, go on.
And he go, well, it's natural talent. I trained every day for it.
His dad, I mean, borderline child abuse. What his dad used to put him through. His dad used to put him in the ring with one hand tied behind his back at 13, 14 years old, and he used to spar grown men. He tells stories about sparring 2 grown men at a time when he was a teenager. And like him and his dad have like it's well documented. You can look it up. Have a very kind of fractious relationship, or have after his career, because of how his youth was. His youth was spent on a chicken farm in Pensacola, Florida, sparring and fighting full-grown men. You went through all of that. Yes, you've got these cat-like reflexes because when you were 13 years old, you were sparring against grown men who could have beat the shit out of you, and did beat the shit out of you.
But the whole thing is, everyone trains hard. Everyone who has ambitions to be something or dedicated to their sport train as hard as he did. No, not everyone. Most do. I trained just as hard as you did, but I didn't have what you had.
Yeah,
I couldn't get it
the
mentally,
talent
physically. I couldn't get, or I could.
He gets. I've seen him doing interviews where people will say you're one of the most naturally talented. He said, I wasn't naturally talented. I used to have to do this. I used to have to do that.
But you have to work at it.
You have to have a little special something, I'm sure. But
Messi's one of the most naturally talented football player boxers as well. Apparently, one of those football players who ever kicked the ball. I don't even watch football, but you know what I mean. But he trains. He has to work it every day because you lose it, and so like I think he is that. But what they work at it, they train at it, but
some people have just got something else.
They got it, yeah. And the fact he's going like, because I can do it, I can teach it. That's rubbish. And because like he won't, I'll look at things, go, oh, I couldn't do that. Like I talk about punching, I commentate, talk about punches. I couldn't punch to save my life, but I understand the reason. I understand now why I couldn't do it or why I didn't do it. And I know how I know how to tell someone how to throw a harder punch. You got what you got, natural power. Like Colin Jones had natural power. People have natural power, and they just hit you with anything, but they still work on it, and you can make it better. And some have got super fast hands, but you can get faster, you can get better. But if you just have it all and you just train hard and really dedicate yourself to it, but you just have it all in your locker anyway. Just got to get out there.
Accentuate it.
Yeah, and also what he had was exceptional timing. So jumping in with the left hook is a great shot. You get all the power, you push off the leg, but you've got to get it perfect. If you make a mistake, you don't know where you are. And I was just to say, Eubank did it, and he was this close to Smith. So the shot hits him, he hits him like this, pretty much. And it's a wasted, you just take a risk to get caught with your feet off the floor. You wasted all that energy throwing a shot that doesn't work, and you won't throw it again now, when it might work, because it didn't work. You're going to go, fuck that, I'm not doing that again, it didn't work. If you're a thinking fighter, like if I throw 3 jabs and miss you with 3 jabs, I don't throw a 4th, because my whole body's telling me that don't work. So I try to think of something else, and then I might go back to it later. But so you just can't teach that. Jones had that natural just timing, vision, everything, well with the power to do all these things. That's why it never seemed like a right fit. I'm not saying he can't be a great trainer, but we haven't seen it yet. And ultimately, you're only as good as your fighter anyway.
Yeah.
And you have
exactly.
And the most important thing of a trainer, he has to know the sport. He has to know you, and you have to trust him.
Yeah.
And we've seen that on the other corner, Joe McNally. That Rotunda the community they have there seems a fantastic thing. And I talk about all the fighters who've been there, who've been pros for amateurs. They all still go there now. It seems like a community-based thing, and that's just what makes boxing so special in this country, especially in this country. But he trusts that kid. a young man, Joe McNally, for the trainer, to be honest. And Liam Smith trusted him. He hadn't been with him that long. He had a career mainly with Joe Gallagher. And they had a real good, fruitful relationship. But he trusts this man. And so when he told him to relax in the next round, he did that, and look what happened. So I think that's the difference.
Yeah, it's just that combination just never really made sense. I think Eubank Jr. and Roy Jones, and I felt like it left him open to the point where he's in a style that he's not really kind of got down pat, and he's against a guy who's better than maybe he felt like he was, and is more susceptible to what was coming back.
I think sometimes as well it comes back to something that you hear British trainers mention / complain about every now and again. And I was talking to Joe on Friday night. We recruited him for Macklin's Take, and we were talking to him about AJ and him.
Macklin's Take?
Him. It's a world leading podcast. It's a world leading podcast. Barry.
All,
you know what it is. Let's not pretend.
Oh, look at George Groves.
The George Groves boxing club.
It's really good.
People just come onto our podcast and plug their own. But anyway,
I have my own column now in the Daily Express.
Unbelievable read. Incredible.
Yes, it is. I'm ready.
But we were talking about AJ and him going to train with Derek James, and Joe was saying, yeah, Derek James is a really good trainer, and he's done this and he's done that, and I'm not taking anything away from him. But there's a lot of good coaches in this country. Why is it that big name fighters feel like, I need to go and train with this guy? And with Eubank Jr., he's that kind of character where you can understand why, for him, Roy Jones, Superman, he appeals. And we're not saying Roy Jones is a bad trainer. It wasn't a criticism. It was just when you're that good, trying to teach people to do what you did, very few people are going to be capable.
In football, you would have had, from working in football, you're like, great player doesn't always make a great manager.
Yeah.
And it's that similar sort of thing.
But also, he's like, he's Chris Eubank Jr. So, who do I have? Maybe the greatest fighters ever lived.
That's what I mean.
Exactly.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
And also for the athleticism, you can see.
Yeah, you can.
Actually, that might work because, Jones was athletically gifted, as is Eubank. No, differently, but they have the same. They're limber and they got good lateral movement and all those things. So he can mimic the style. He can mimic it.
Yeah, that's what it was.
But he's a volume puncher. That's what he was at trade. He used to throw too many. I used to criticise him for that early in his career. But I think that was a better version, in my opinion, because as he's throwing punches, you can't throw back because you got those long levers. He doesn't get too close to the target. If he would have been throwing 15 punches at Liam Smith and kept them really long, Liam would have actually slid in the distance. But I mean, there's still punches. There might not be knockout punches, but there's still punches you feel. They might not knock you out, but they'll stop you from throwing back. And that might have been the way for him. But
I'll put you on the spot a little bit then. Who do you think, let's say a UK trainer, who would you pair him up with? Take his ego out of it and just think...
But you can't.
No. But in an ideal world, stylistically, if he was going to go and train with someone and listen and kind of commit and move away from home if he need, which he's always done, who would you...
I'm not sure, really, to be honest, mate.
Taking the ego out of it is such a difficult...
I know. I'm talking hypotheticals here, really, and I know that's a bit
I would say,
in a way.
The reason I maybe say Adam Booth is because he has
they had a try, didn't they?
But he had a wide stance. But Booth is mainly about... Ultimately, I think that wide stance thing is like you have to be able to punch.
Yeah, predicated on power,
because it drains your energy that way. But also, he's used to dealing with egos, Adam Booth.
True.
So I think that might have helped. But it obviously didn't work. But that might have helped. But I don't know. Eubank. I don't. Ronnie Davis seems to be the right one because he don't listen to anyone anyway. It doesn't seem. He listens to Roy Jones, but that's not working. But say it's not working. He's lost one fight with him, haven't he? That's the truth of it.
Yeah. Even in the wins, I don't think he's. Obviously he beat Liam Williams, and the first half of the fight looked fantastic. If he stops the fight in 6 or 7 rounds, and maybe we're not having this conversation now, and certainly what followed afterwards. I think. I
tell you what is worry though is like Eubank getting beat. He's been beat before. He comes back still because he's a big name. And if he wants to come back, he comes back. The way he got beat. Yeah. However much he's building the thing now. And he might still, it'll say a lot about his character because, like you already alluded to, you blatantly said that, I know and I can take a great punch, get you out of trouble so many times. And he still stands, he can still take a punch. but not 100% knowing 100% you can take that shot.
Yeah, that's going to have that in the back of his mind.
That's big.
That's going to be very interesting. Yeah. We said in the preview show, I think like the best version that we've seen of him, admittedly against not the best version of James DeGale by a long shot, was under Nate Vasquez, and sort of jabbing his way on the inside and then kind of fusing the sort of outside boxing that he's been doing recently, and then the early stage of his career where he's letting his hands go. There is always the kind of argument that he was able to let his hands go and throw all of these punches early in his career because he wasn't boxing anybody who was providing any resistance.
That's right, but he was learning to do it. Like all these fights, you practice what you do in the gym, in the ring. That's why people fight journeyman. That's why this sport's different to most other sports, because you have to sort of because it's so dangerous and it's a short career that you have to have these tests to see if things are working in the gym, and then you get the step up to real opposition. That's what happens with most. But so he was getting used to, and he was finding a success rate in doing it. I think he used it quite well and effectively. Though he lost against Billy Joe Saunders, couldn't throw as many. But I think that was a good style for him. That was a good fight. It was good at fighting. Turned out to be a world-class fighter in Billy Joe Saunders.
And in a fight where it was an enormous jump in levels as well. So to be able to show that in the fight, admittedly not for the first 6 rounds, but...
What never gets mentioned enough about Eubank is, what are we talking about Eubank for? He didn't win the fight. We're doing it again.
We're about to move on to talk about what comes next for Liam Smith. Finish what you're saying.
No. His innate toughness.
Yeah.
And that's where Smith should get so much credit, because he just stopped a guy who is so mentally and physically tough. He really is. And Liam Smith just, this horrible to say it, wiped the floor with him.
Found the gaps.
In that last round.
As Carl Froch said, obliterated him.
He did.
Carl
really did. Well, I mean, one of the reasons that we're kind of debating Eubank more than Smith is because what Smith did was just so clean
shocking.
cut.
Yeah.
It was so clean cut, and so in a way, what else is there to say about it?
Yeah,
he took him apart.
Anyway,
and we weren't expecting it. But
what's next for Smith?
He was given the opportunity by Eubank, and he took it.
Yeah.
He went through him,
and he'll be all over a rematch.
There's the gap.
He'll be all over a rematch.
Of course he will. Is the rematch happening, Barry? What are you saying?
Let's give it a week or two, I think.
No, we don't. We're not part of the team. We don't have to say, well, I need to go back and speak to Liam Smith.
No. I think
in your opinion, do you think
Smith
the rematch happens?
Yes, I do.
It's up to you, Eubank, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Say it's up to you, Barry.
But if it's up to me,
you do wield a lot of power and influence in boxing. That's fair to say.
That's right. Yeah, as I was commentating from Leeds. But yeah, it's I think he'll win it again. Yeah, I don't think he'll want to go out like that. And I don't think I want to allow that the way that fight played out to be
And given that there aren't that many people he listens to, can you imagine trying to talk him out of it? Can you imagine having that job? You're the one who's going to
what would build it up as well?
Chris, you know what? I'm not sure it's a great idea.
Who has that conversation though?
Nobody.
At this stage? Is there anybody who has that conversation with him?
No.
Who even has the?
But then ultimately, you make up your own mind anyway. All these people, having good people around you is fantastic. But ultimately, we're grown men now.
Yeah.
We talk about sportsmen, fighters, especially fighters, like they're babies. You need people around him, and you do need people around you to talk sense into you sometimes, because we are all deluded. But like, you're a grown man, a grown woman. You make up your own choice. Ultimately, if you're lucky enough to be able to define your own, to form your own career, because most of us just sat there waiting to be told when we're fighting next and who we're fighting, and thankful for it. That's what's the truth for most fighters. But he's in an enviable, a lucky position. I can't say the word. That hang on, I'm around middle class people here, but yeah, he can sort of like, he has a massive say in where his career goes. He has a massive say because he's a massive name now, and he can, and people still want to watch him. He'll still be box office, even though he's lost. He might have to go down to normal Sky for one fight or wherever he decides to go. That's the thing with him. He don't have to tie himself to any broadcaster.
I believe he's out of contract with Boxer as well.
That's what I mean. He doesn't need contract with anybody, because who he is, everyone wants him still. Any fight that he chooses to take is still a sellable fight. And his dad will come out and say, you should never box again.
Oh, I was talking about Liam, sorry. Anyway.
Sorry. Yeah,
Liam's out of contract with Boxer.
Oh, Liam's out of contract. Well, Liam all of a sudden now, his worlds were opened right up. Just when you think that this might have been the last fight for him if he didn't win. No, like all of a sudden now, he got that rematch. If he gets it, that's fantastic. And he'll take it in a heartbeat. And if he wins that, there's other fighters who've been retired to with Kell Brook. No, I don't want to see that. But can you blame him if Kell Brook is in retirement now and that fight will do well on pay-per-view? And can they build that? But it just will. That's just a fact.
Yeah, no,
It's a fact.
I
don't.
agree.
Listen,
I'm
I want
not
to see.
dismissing what you're saying.
I want to see real fights
for
real fight with real active fighters. But but can you blame him for taking that? It's a bigger. You get more for that than he will fight if he had to fight Golovkin like you want him to fight.
Well, it depends. I mean, and again,
he should go back down to like super welterweight.
Well, this is the thing. He said beforehand, I could still make 154, but I could imagine after a career best performance, biggest win of his career, didn't have to take off those extra £6. I'd imagine he probably stays at middleweight.
Oh, but
and also middleweight is not what it used to be. Golovkin's 40, Charlo is injured, hasn't boxed in 17 months. Alan Hanuli didn't set the world alight against Denzel Bentley. Who's got the other belt? Oh, that's it. That's all for.
Yeah, that's it.
He could have a rematch with Jaime Munguia.
But these big domestic clashes, they're where it's at in terms of.
I don't want to see the Kell Brook fight, man. Kell Brook's.
No, I don't.
I don't want to. But
in nearly 3 years, his only fight's been Amir Khan.
Look, we're both with you on that. We're both with you on that. But that rematch is.
By the time this podcast comes
out, it's kind of it's hey value in a way, isn't
it?
It's like it's not.
I think
it doesn't have global significance. But it makes bundles and bundles of cash. And if
somebody will be talking to somebody from Sky or Boxer will be in contact with Kell Brook now. Or they'll be in contact with them, whatever.
Yeah, of course.
By the middle of this week, definitely. If you're interested, or you'll be going, I might be interested, and yeah. You can see that, and Liam Smith, if he can do the same job on Eubank and beat him again, then he'll fancy doing the same job on a Brook of this age. But Liam's not young, by the way, but still, I think he seems the fresher fighter of everyone right now, and he'll take it. And what a position he's in financially now to get all that money at the end of his career. He's earned decent money, good money, but this is different level money now.
Yeah. We spoke to him earlier in the week, and I said that he boxed 4 times in 21 months. And he said that, people keep saying this kind of the new Liam Smith. It's just activity. It's like you're seeing more of me. I'm boxing regularly. He boxed Kurbanov, Vargas.
Robbed in that night.
I thought that could have gone either way. I thought if it was in the UK, he would have won it. I thought he'd got it in the UK.
Won that. He wasn't.
But anyway, so he boxed Kurbanov, who's a world level fighter. He beat Patrick Teixeira, who's former world champion, in his next fight. I didn't realise how good and cute and tricky Kurbanov was until the next fight he had after Smith.
Yeah.
I didn't know whether or not he got Smith on a bad night or maybe Smith was coming to the end of his career. And then when he boxed Teixeira, I thought he looked really well. So that was in kind of it's a very close loss. Whatever you think.
Yeah, I didn't really read anything
better down the line.
Yeah, I didn't read anything into that at the time because I'm sure he got well paid for it. And I think people were looking at it and thinking, oh, way in Russia, why take that fight? He must have got well paid for it.
Yeah, you would imagine so.
And anyone who watched it knows that it was at worst for him very, very close. Yeah. I thought he won.
Yeah, I thought
so it didn't do him any harm really.
But he said now, like, and this is kind of where we're saying about. Let's assume. I think the rematch will happen, but let's dare to dream and say that it doesn't. Like if you're at 160, the Golovkin fight isn't the daunting fight that it maybe was 3 or 4 years ago.
Dream big and go for Triple G.
The two options that I would like to see him at, if it's not Eubank, is Golovkin or Alan Hanuli. Because I think if he said before the fight, look, I want to become a 2-weight world champion, or I want to box at
one is just a much bigger draw than
one's a much bigger draw than other. But if he beats Alan Hanuli and he can go into a unification and he's already beat a Kazakh world champion, then that makes the fight even bigger. And he can become a 2-weight world champion and get the big fight. That potentially could do Anfield, Golovkin.
Oh, I think so, yeah.
I think you're having big ass. So I think, we're calling Eubank a world level fighter, which I guess you have to. But when we really break it down, I'm not quite sure would Eubank beat any of the world champions? I never thought he did. He would have, to be honest. And I think it's a big step up. I think Alan Hanuli, if I said his name right, that's a better fight than, though he's fresher and younger and all the rest. I think that's a better fight than Golovkin.
Yeah, but it pays 10% of what Golovkin.
Oh, no, of course it is. Of course, you take the money. Liam would just take the money now. Whatever he wants to be a world champion again, but he'll take the money because even though he is 34 and he still looked quite fresh, and there was no miles on the clock for that fight for him.
No, for sure.
He's still, how long is he going to keep going for? Because what you just want to get that one big fight on you. I think if Golovkin's a bigger fight, I don't know. Listen, he gets a different Eubank. It's still a hard fight for him. He done it with that clean shot. We don't know where we are in round 7, do we? You know what I mean? In a rematch, he might be paying. But
I think one of the interesting things about the rematch, and one of the kind of double-edged swords of a rematch clause that's already pre-arranged before the fight, is that the terms of that rematch, which are in black and white in a contract, would have still been weighted towards Chris Eubank Jr.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now does it add up? You've just seen Liam Smith blow him away in 4 rounds. Is it gonna make sense, not just for the fighters but for the people who are putting the money up, the broadcasters, the promoters? Okay, it's said before, I know Ben Shalom said afterwards that he thinks the rematch could do Anfield. Personally, I don't think the rematch does Anfield. So does it make sense? Does it make financial sense to make the rematch?
It's always Eubank, isn't it? And like I said, his father say he shouldn't fight, and that they'll sell the story that way. Father and son at war, you know what I mean? Don't fight, son. Look what what's happened with me, another fight, and Michael Watson, and him going, Dad, I do my own thing, and they'll sell it on that. Like they sell every fight on the Eubank drama. Not always around his dad, but they were half using that with the Conor Benn thing a little bit. You know, I just think that Eubank can sell. And Smith's a good fighter anyway, but I mean, for pay-per-view, we go beyond the sport, don't we?
Yeah.
And it's
good. How does it reach?
And even though Smith won the last fight and all that, he doesn't go beyond the sport. Eubank's name does.
I think the Anfield argument, I think there is an argument there for it, because
like they did with Goodison, cut it in half, like.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm not joking.
No, Bellew did that.
I thought he said I'd do it at Goodison.
No, like they did with Goodison. That fight, wasn't there?
I can see the argument for it though, because Liverpool they've had loads of good fighters for forever, but the last 10, 15 years, they've had loads of good fighters come through that city. And they've not had that night.
No.
I know Bellew had it for Goodison with Everton, but Liverpool fans, Liverpool FC boxing fans, and there are loads of them, they haven't had that night. And if you stick Jonas on it, and you get some other local fighters on it, and to sell out the stadium, you're talking about getting Liverpool Football Club fans, plus other boxing fans, to go. I think maybe it wouldn't fill it, but I think you would probably fill enough of it
that you can make it work.
Yeah, if you really get behind it and drive it.
Interested in to see if that.
The thing is, outdoor broadcasts like that cost a fortune, don't they?
Yeah, it's true.
When would they do it as well? Because you're gonna have the window. Well, I mean, to be fair, there's plenty of time. I genuinely forget what month or year.
Yeah.
But how much that cost though to do that, to get that outside for a broadcaster? That's got to be taken into play.
Yeah, I mean, Wembley is the numbers that you hear about Wembley. It's £1 million to rent the stadium. I mean, it's not going to be that.
Yeah, you're right.
But it's still going to be expensive.
The lighting rig and the cameras.
Yeah,
they need for that.
No, that's a good point actually. So the consideration is not just can you. How many are you going to
get? Yeah, it's how much the whole thing. How much the whole thing costs. So I don't.
You've got to be absolutely confident it's going to do at least 500,000 buys.
A lot of it will be based on.
And on the back of a 4th round stoppage.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know. It felt like, I mean, we're all in the boxing bubble, so we spoke about it before we started. And it felt like by the time the fight night came around, because I think we all had kind of not reservations, but we were wondering, I guess, what a pay-per-view in January was going to do. And by the time the fight came around, I mean, we had all of the kind of the unsavoury stuff at the press conference.
We're in it, aren't we?
We felt like it was a big fight, but again, we're in it, so we don't know. So I'm interested to see. I mean, we kind of take every number with a pinch of salt nowadays, but I'm interested to see how
me too
performed.
That would certainly dictate where the fight goes next.
Yeah,
I guess. Because if this done really well, they're going to go, okay, the second one won't do as well, but it might be enough to push it for that.
But I didn't really think of that. It's a really good point. But it's filling a stadium is one thing, but to pay for that, you've got to be absolutely certain of what you'll get a big pay.
And the Hay Bellew, yes, it was an upset, but there was a clear, obvious injury that happened, and Hay came out and said, we did this, we did that, and so
they're much bigger guys, and it's David Hay.
Yeah. And exactly
the man's been in the jungle.
When you take like Hay's more famous than Eubank at that point, you would say
absolutely.
In the jungle, and Bellew is more famous than Liam Smith.
Yeah. And I think one of the you mentioned earlier about Chris Eubank Jr. and kind of, I don't know about carefully worded, but so interestingly worded post-fight interview when he got back to the dressing room. He said, the rematch will happen. There was one or two murmurs about whether or not it would happen next, whether or not he has a fight in between, which would allow Liam Smith to go and potentially fight in Alan Panuli or somebody like that, or whoever at middleweight.
Yeah, because if he lost, it wouldn't matter. That fight would
it'd still be there, wouldn't it?
Eubank won't fight next. For Smith to fight next, you mean?
For Eubank, so Eubank kind of stopped short of saying that the rematch would happen next.
Okay.
So there's a chance that maybe he would have maybe he wants to fight at 160 to see if he can do the weight properly.
Yeah, but I think that might be an issue for him. That he does need to go up. Well, maybe if he needs.
But
to
if
go
you're
up.
Liam Smith, I mean, he mentioned it in the ring afterwards, didn't he? Yeah, we'll do it
On my
157,
terms.
158. Like,
he's joking,
and again, I'm sure, but I mean, there's no way Liam Smith after winning the first fight goes, I'll tell you what, Chris, we'll do a 164 next
No,
time.
but I think Will Smith. I think what Smith's saying there, trying to look beyond it, is that he's going. No, because everything.
It's on my terms.
Every single thing would have been on the terms
Yeah.
of Eubank Jr. winning.
And exactly, and that's what I mean. Like, even the rematch clause would have been weighted towards Eubank, and now on the back of a demolition job, a 4-round demolition job.
The rematch clause was only if Eubank won, there was no rematch clause.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. But so now Liam's looking at it, going, yeah, we could do the rematch, but I tell you, I don't really fancy that.
Eubank's still the A side. People go mad about that. I mean, because whoever's the financial kingpin, he's always the A side, not the guy who's the better fighter. That's people get that confused sometimes.
Bellew did it, didn't he, with Hay? He did the first Hay fight as a rematch. And he sort of said, well, yeah, well, we'll have to be on my terms this time, mate. It'll have to be Bellew, Hay, and you'll have to walk second, and all of the little bits and pieces that David Hay likes to allegedly put in his contract. Bellew was like, well, we'll do that this way this time. So I don't know. I think Eubank will want to do the rematch. Whether or not it happens next, I don't know. And whether or not it happens in general, I don't know.
If Eubank wants a rematch, that'll be Eubank's next fight. I don't know whether Smith's allowed another fight. I don't know how long that it'll take. I don't think he will. But I think if there's a rematch clause, I think that'll be next. I don't think there'll be a fight in between.
If the rematch doesn't happen, we've spoke about what potentially might happen for Liam Smith. What happens for Chris Eubank Jr.? Does he move up in weight, Andy?
Yeah, it depends. If he doesn't want to do it again with Smith at 160, the only reason you can think of would be because he needs to move up. And if he moves up to super middleweight, then
there's no one there, is there?
No, I don't really know what he does, to be honest.
I can't think of one decent fighter at super middleweight.
But I wouldn't recommend, for example, obviously John Ryder's after that fight with Canelo, and I really, really hope he gets it. But you think about British super middleweights, I wouldn't recommend that Chris Eubank Jr. tries to fight Callum Smith.
No,
he's light heavyweight now anyway. Sorry, he's light heavyweight now anyway. But I think I don't see him. I don't see it ending well for him against John Ryder either.
Barry, Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn.
I can see it happening. Still, I can. I think.
Oh God, yeah, of course, I forgot about that.
We managed to navigate the whole thing without it.
Well, Conor Benn, I've got a license yet, so let's see. And he might never get a British license, but that doesn't mean he won't be able to box over here. It doesn't mean he's not going to box again. I think with the Conor Benn thing, like, until we see what we see. So I've said from the very beginning, I never jumped all over him because there's been failed tests, so we've been told. And so that's the truth. You've got to take that as what we know, what we've been told we know. And there has to be a price to pay, you would feel. But, to say that he's done all these things, we just don't know. It never looked great for him, to be honest, from day one. But until all this stuff coming out now, I don't know. It all seems a lot of legal stuff to me. I don't. We've had it with other fighters. I don't want to call names out where they've had an issue with their test. They say an issue with their test, but then legal things have gone on, and no one can talk about it anymore. And just think.
But there's two.
That's not a. You haven't been exonerated there. It's just legally. This has been a legal thing there where someone's going to get sued if they do this, or there's been a process of being wrong.
Yeah, I mean,
it's like the chain of evidence, isn't it? So, well, I murdered you, but you picked up the knife after me, police officer. So now,
one thing I don't understand about it, Rob. I mean, there's plenty of things I don't understand about it, Rob. But you might be able to explain this one to me. Is why is Benn's defence? Why is that aimed so specifically at the WBC?
Because the first test was a clean boxing program test for the WBC. So the WBC, as for people may not be aware of, in order to be ranked in the top 15 by the WBC, you have to submit to the clean boxing program. The first test, which was before Eubank Jr. versus Benn was announced, was agreed, was a clean boxing program test administered by VADA under the WBC. So that's where that investigation goes. There is another investigation. Riaf Al-Samari, who is, of course, the man who broke the story on that fateful Wednesday back in October, has mentioned the fact that there is an ongoing UCAD investigation, which, of course, the governing body, the drug testing agency for the British Boxing Board of Control in the UK. UKAD do not comment on ongoing investigations. I was politely reminded that by somebody from UKAD at the weekend when I just moseyed up to him.
They did that once before, didn't he?
Yeah. So they don't comment on ongoing investigations. So the UKAD investigation, which is going on kind of parallel to the WBC one, we're not going to hear anything of any credibility on that until
there's a finding.
Until UKAD. So anybody talks about it openly unless it's somebody from UKAD, take it with a pinch of salt.
So just at some point one day they will deliver a verdict.
I spoke to Mauricio Suleiman last Saturday. He said about the WBC, they received a 270-page document before Christmas from Team Benn, which called for, in his words, several further actions. Now, the kind of, I guess, the pessimist would look at that and say that, that's a way of prolonging drowning somebody in litigation and legal fees. It calls for this test. It calls for this precedent. It calls for that. It calls for this.
So what about the second test then?
The second test was under VADA, but because it was for a fight that was in the UK and obviously sanctioned, or supposedly sanctioned under the British Boxing Board of Control by 2 license holders at the time. That is what's kind of under the UK anti-doping agency. Right. So yeah, it's all very, very legal at the minute. Isn't it? But as it stands at the minute, Conor Benn failed 2 drugs tests, and it is, you can class that as a fail now because the B sample, by all intents and purposes, has come back positive.
He has no boxing license
at the minute. No.
Well, let's not talk about him then.
He can be licensed as an international fighter like Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury doesn't have a British Boxing Board of Control license.
But he has a license with someone else.
He has a Nevada. Yeah, so he boxes here as a foreign fighter. So he has a Nevada State Athletic Commission license.
So he's a boxer at the minute. Ben's a boxer with no license. So So he has a license.
But if Ben were to go and get a license, if Ben were to go and get a license in the USA,
he wouldn't be able to box.
The Board of Control wouldn't then.
He wouldn't be able to box here while there's still an ongoing UKAD investigation, which is different to Tyson Fury. Of course, he had the nandrolone after the fight with Christian Hammer. But by the time he returned to the ring after the Vladimir Klitschko fight, he had a backdated 2-year ban, as it was put out by UKAD. Yeah. So until there's a resolution, Conor Benn's not going to be able to box. There has to be some form of and if he wants to box another license holder, because the British Boxing Board of Control, if he doesn't have a resolution from UKAD, doesn't have a British Boxing Board of Control license, and not going to sign off on other license holders, be it fighters, managers, referees, judges going to Dubai or Abu Dhabi and having Eubank versus Benn, guy who's completely unlicensed against the whole British Boxing Board of Control lineup. Really.
But they won't need the British Boxing Board to do that fight, will they? That's the truth of it.
They could have an unsanctioned fight.
Well, they got my cousin's a judge in Dubai.
We'll judge. There's 3 judges here.
UAE, they could do it.
But again, it's going to come.
I want to be the referee.
Come down to the British Boxing Board of Control and their stance on other British Boxing Board of Control licensed fighters.
Oh right, okay,
referees, judges being as part of that while there's still an ongoing investigation. If I mean, this is purely my kind of, I guess, assessment of the situation. I believe that there will be some sort of backdated ban, be it from the WBC, be it from UKAD, and Benn will return to the ring. The date that they're going from is the first test, which is July. So if it's 12 months, he'll box this July, 2 years, next July, so on.
If it's 6 months, then it's already over.
Much. But we're waiting to see that. What did you make of Conor Benn's reaction?
Can I just say, they shouldn't ban him over a period of time. If people fail the test, I'm not saying about Conor Benn. I'm saying about Conor Benn. Should never have fights. Yeah. Because it happened with Canelo, didn't it?
That though, because
it happened with Canelo though, because Canelo had a 6 month ban. Yeah. But they fight once, twice a year anyway, don't they? These guys who earn loads of money. So if you give a fighter who fails the drugs test, I know there's different ways to fail tests, isn't there? You can buy something with a counter by accident and make a mistake, or you can just inject stuff into your bumhole. I don't know. I've never tried it. I mean, I've tried certain things, not drugs though. But and I just think that if you do fights, right, you're banned for 4 fights.
Problem is, how do you put that into practice? Yeah. So you're like, we were going to fight him next weekend, but we're banned for that one.
We were going to fight 4 times.
All of a sudden your ban's over after 6 weeks.
Of course, it makes sense to it.
It would be good. I see what you mean.
No, actually, no, you say that.
Maybe do sort of an average of their.
It's a ludicrous thing to say, isn't it? They just announced 4 fights week after week, wouldn't they? I'm going to prize fighter. 3 fights.
You're sort
of get them to expand it by one. Get them to have a 16-man prize fight to enter that, and it's all over.
Andy, what did you make of Conor's reaction? I think he posted the infamous Nassim Hamed ITV commentary, and he said that just as well the fight didn't happen at 160. I'd have knocked you out in 2 rounds. And then there was the video of him and Nigel kind of laughing, which was
I actually this isn't very helpful for the purposes of this, but I actually didn't watch it. I saw it on social media, and I suspected that it would irritate me, so I didn't actually listen to it. Rather, I kind of saw it, but so I don't know what he said, but my immediate reaction was, I would have much preferred it if you hadn't done this.
Yeah.
That it was a cheap shot. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't claim to know him really, really well, but all my dealings with Conor have been really positive. He's been very polite, very friendly, just an absolute pleasure to be around.
He's respectful.
And I just thought it was, and for the Conor Benn that I know, and I'm not claiming that I know him, like I say, we're not best friends, but from the Conor Benn I know, from my interactions with him, I thought that was beneath him.
Agreed.
Honestly.
Agreed. Yeah, I think while there are, Conor has been very vocal, as is his promoter Eddie Hearn, about, he'll be vindicated and there's evidence and he'll be innocent and we hope the apology is as loud as the disrespect,
even if all of that comes to fruition.
Wait until it's done.
Yeah, absolutely.
When there's a ruling and you're exonerated, as may be the case, we don't know. We're still not privy to the details. So he may be exonerated. He may be due an apology from a lot of people.
Outcomes are still possible.
Yeah, but until that happens, I think it may have been a little bit ill-advised. But emotions running high. And we've had a terrible 3 or 4 months.
Social media. It's just like I've never said anything untowards social media. I made a mistake. And
you've abused me daily on Twitter.
That's you, though, isn't it?
That's just sport, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's fun and games.
Yeah. So, yeah. No, I did put it. Oh no, I'm not gonna say it. But it's just madness. Who cares? Like, who cares? I think now there's people you do feel the need to say stuff, don't you? Like I read stuff on Twitter and I go, I gotta say something, and I think, why have I got to say something?
Yeah.
Why do I feel the need of me to say something? Like it's nothing to do with me. Anything.
But also, like from I mean, yes, I'm the same, and if I'm on the brink of it and I know it's a debate and people are going to have an opinion and people seem to have strong opinions, I just think to myself, why am I going to invite people into my living room to row with me? What for?
I think exactly the same thing, but from the opposite side of things. I think, everyone will hate this. They're not going to get him in.
But Barry's right though. Like it's everybody feels the need to say something, and Conor feels like he's been wronged and he wants to say something.
But Eubank never said. To be fair to Eubank, with the whole Conor Benn thing, I like this. When it's about you take it more personal because it's about you, obviously. So you take things that really. I don't think he ever said too much bad about Conor Benn. To be fair, Eubank never said that much. I mean, after the drug test, didn't say that much too bad. But he was sort of a little bit condescending towards him.
You're full of shit, really. Basically, what he said, didn't he?
Yeah, but he didn't scream like no. If that was me the other way, there would be a big screaming match. Or certainly, and rightfully so. You understand that, but I mean. He could have been a lot worse with it, I thought.
But that's kind of the genius of Eubank, though, isn't it? Because he doesn't really sort of like direct.
Yeah, it's always a little bit understated.
He just belittles you.
Insinuates everything, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's very, very clever with it.
He certainly is. Okay. That's pretty much all we've got time for on Eubank Jr versus Smith. We do have another fight to preview coming up this weekend. So... Unfortunately, to the undercard, we're not going to have any time today, but good wins for Richard Riakporhe, Echo Esserman, Fraser Clark, etc., which I'm sure we'll come on to another time. But from
noble defeat from Jack Massey.
Noble defeat from Jack Massey. I really do want to talk about it. We are slightly pressed for time, so we're going to talk about Anthony Yarde versus Artur Beterbiev. So we're going to cut here, but thanks as always for everybody tuning in. Thanks to our esteemed panel of guests, Mr. Barry Jones and Andy Clark, for stopping by. Please like, comment and subscribe. Tell us below who you would like to see Liam Smith, Chris Eubank Jr. face next, and who you would like to replace Barry Jones on the next episode. As always, real pleasure. Thanks very much for stopping by.